official idiomas, and I am accompanying people that are doing the same. In here, you have the unit 66. First of all, see that I show you the bones, the structure. This is a unit that could be said and explained in many different ways, and I guess that the best option is to follow more or less the structures that I'm giving you. This structure that I'm giving you about the different countries and different times of the period related to the cinema, and then use your own references. And in this case, I'm going to show you how I would, tackle this unit. So you have, as always, the index. Then I show you in my PDF the bibliography. Then you have principal questions that you could answer in my website. So my intention, again, is that you develop your own thinking about this unit using these ideas that I'm giving you already, and create and shape your own answer of the unit. But the principal questions are importance of technical findings for the early development of cinema. Then second is the first big masters in the early Hollywood. And third, consequences of the invention of the talking picture, of pictures. Okay, so let's move on. In the first part of this unit, I am talking in the outline or topic summary or lesson plan. I'm talking about the cinema as a culmination of realism. Why? Well, I think it's essential. The discoveries of the photography and so on, and also before the painting and the different techniques that they develop in order to paint what they were seeing in a very, very realistic way. So art always lived under what the French critic André Bazin called the similarity complex, the obsession for the accurate reproduction of the sensations provided by our senses. This obsessive search ending in the 19th century after a crucial invention, that of the film projector. The birth of cinema, the progress in photography, and the invention of the kinetograph and kinetoscope in Edison's laboratory gave birth to the invention of the new machine able to project the illusion of movement. The beginnings of an industry, the first big companies in history, pathes, that comes from pathos, which means emotions, right, in feelings in Greek, and governments. Edison's initiative, the creation of the motion pictures patent company to prevent piracy. The result, the beginning of a cinema industry on the Californian coast, the beginning of Hollywood by the would-be mayors. The rise of Hollywood, the first big masters. And here we have these, I have placed three of them. David W. Griffith, 1875 up to 1948, the wizard of movement and editing, was the first to provide a systematic language for the new art and the grammar of cinema. The new art and grammar of cinema. So I guess I have misspelled there. It's and grammar of cinema, or a grammar of cinema. Well, anyway, you understand. Thomas Harper Innes was the creator of one of the classical genres. Remember this word before? I explained the difficulties of pronouncing this word for Spanish speakers. Genres, don't confuse with gender, in cinema, that of the Far West. Mark Sennet, the maker of highly celebrated burlesque series, Sennet became famous as the originator of slapstick routines such as pie throwing and car crashes. Crashes, I think I have misspelled that also. So, or car chases, they chase each other. Maybe it's that one as well. And so, but it's important, the slapstick is what we think about these kind of fights that they created in movies that did not have sound at the beginning, right? And everything is about people chasing others and having a kind of a fight, this kind of things. And in the middle, also remember pie throwing. Charles Chaplin, and if you think in the movies of Charles Chaplin, you understand now better what Mark Sennet was trying to do, whose cinema blends laughter with tenderness, reality with fantasy, lyricism with sadness, all merged with a deep social and political content, and they performed with an extremely high aesthetic, this is an important word, aesthetic and film accurateness. So trying to make everything perfect in terms of filmmaking. Buster Keaton is another representative figure here of the silent movies, the counterpoint to Charles Chaplin sentimentality, because Buster Keaton is a little bit different although it's the same genre kind of movie, he did it in another way. It's trying to differentiate himself from Charles Chaplin. The passage to talking picture, Hollywood, the factory of dreams. The first talking picture dating from 1927, and 1927 is an important date, and you know that year is when happened what they call the big crack, right? The big crisis there, and the crack of the 1927 in the business. So Ole Jolson sang in Alan Crosland's The Jazz Singer, produced by Warner Brothers. This involved a critical turning point in many aspects. For many celebrities of all the old silent period could not survive it because their dual voices or their inability to adapt themselves. And this is very well explained in a movie that is called, and you know this movie, Singing in the Rain. You could see that. Another important movie that you could see the evolution or kind of a link to that kind of changes in the cinema is The Wizard of Oz as well. Remember where they changed from black and white movies into the color ones, right? So I keep reading and saying here, moreover, many conventions present in the language of silent cinema had to be recreated. Yes, so these changes, these evolutions made the gender change, obviously, and they need to adapt themselves to the new creations. This recreation successfully affects many traditional genders, comedy and Western, etc. The 30s and 40s are also known as the golden age for the so-called system. So remember, the star actors and actresses are made in order to call the public's attention. This star system is closely related to establishing of the Academy Awards, the popular Oscars, first given in 1927. Then the survival of Hollywood, the TV and the cinema screen. The post-war period was the age of McCarthyism. McCarthyism is a period, and I have placed in my PDF a link that goes directly to Wikipedia, where you can develop a little bit further this idea and understand better what was this period. But in general terms, I think it was a moment where this person was against, so it created a whole movement where they were against communism, okay? So it was kind of against these ideas, and several purges were set up in the movie making scene. Some aesthetic innovations belong to this post-war era in Hollywood. The figure of Orson Welles represents this innovative impulse. The 40s and especially the 50s saw phenomena that led the American movie industry into a permanent critical state. This rise of television as a major mass media. Again, now suddenly it's TV, so now everything has to also change a little bit. The concurrence of new ways of filmmaking coming from Europe. The Lost Generation and the underground cinema. The wind of change suggests the wind of change, so el viento que cambia, no? The wind of change suggests a division in the trends followed by American cinema. The group of the new directors such as Mack, Cassavetes and Leacock, and then you can develop your own research there. The intermediate post-war generation of filmmakers such as Keaton, Aldrich, Samuel Fuller, and then the still older generation of directors such as Walsh, Bider, Ford, and Hitchcock. And you probably have heard more of Ford and Hitchcock than any other that I have mentioned before. I mean, in popular terms, maybe if you are yourself studying cinema, this video is not for you. This video is for English teachers who want to use resources as cinema in their classes. So I keep reading. From the 70s to present day, American cinema. Some features and trends, some new trends. Those film traductions which focus on the intrinsic value of the aesthetic as an essential element in the film. Those films which, to a greater or lesser extent, denounce the ideology of politically unfair systems. The unequivocally named consumer cinema, which subordinates all aesthetic search to the simple aim of provoking and shocking the viewer. And some recovery in the 80s, due to the increased process of company merging, the enormous potentialities offered by the opening of the TV markets to film production, not to mention nowadays, right, with the YouTube channel and many other channels and the social media, okay? So obviously we are living again a new revolution in there, but I'm not commenting that now because we are on the 80s, okay? So some popular filmmakers like Francis Ford Coppola, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and you probably know all of them. There is also another off-Hollywood trend, remember Broadway and off-Broadway and off-Broadway that we were talking about, the theater or the plays. Now here it is happening also with Hollywood. So we have here directors like Susan Seidelman, Spike Lee, and Woody Allen, and you probably know them, all of them, especially Woody Allen, considered an outstanding comedy maker, an outstanding comedy maker. Origins, and you could use these guidelines to develop your own ideas through this period. Origins and Forge-Lee, Rise of Hollywood, Classical Hollywood Cinema, and the Golden Age of Hollywood, 1913 up to 1969, the studio system, decline of the studio system, late 1940s, New Hollywood and post-classical cinema, 1960s up to 1990s, and early 21st century. This can be, you know, as I told you, the structure. So now I'm talking now about British cinema. Because we have been talking about American cinema, now is British cinema. Some characteristics could be mentioned about British cinema throughout its history. The frequent adaptation of literary works to the screen, example, and I'm going to give you one example that I really admire her, Emma Thompson's adaptation in 1995 of Sense and Sensibility, a Jane Austen's 1811 novel. And Emma Thompson, won an Oscar, you know that very well. She performed one of the characters, but she did the adaptation. So this is interesting as well. In general, what I'm trying to inspire here to the teacher is that they could also show, and this is something that I will probably do in another video, is to show you the difference between the novel in one scene, so one moment of the novel, compare to one moment in the script that I have it already from the 1994 adaptation of not Emma Thompson, but another one that is called Little Women. And I will show you difference, also difference from novel to the script for the film, but also if we can find any other theater play adaptation of the Little Women that I know exist. I can also show you how they have brought that scene into theater. And this is what I think is very rich. The field is very rich. You could actually take whatever inspires you and you know very well and transmit to your students the love for English or the love for studying another language through the cinema as well. You know, that's important, and theater. I keep reading. A sort of realistic trend coming from so another of her novels, sorry, I was talking about Jane Austen's, another of her novels that you probably know. So the novel was written in 1813, Pride and Prejudice, but you probably have seen the movie. Keira Knightley, right, performing Pride and Prejudice in the 90s. In the 90s, I think it was. Beautiful movie, and my recommendation: go and read the novel first or later, but in some moment. A sort of realistic trend coming from the production of documentaries, British attachment to the so-called studio cinema, a historical glimpse of the most outstanding milestones in the evolution of British cinema could be summarized as follows: the advent of the Brighton School, the already mentioned British Documentary School, and the Angry Young Men movement. And they say that this is important in the evolution of cinema in British cinema. I can give you also another kind of other guidelines: origins and silent films, the early sound period, Second World War, post-war cinema, social realism, the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 20s, and obviously for example, in 2010s, so in 2019, it has been performed in 2019, Little Women, and this is what I was commenting before, that although this is an American, Little Women is an American novel, we know that recently has been the director, that is Greta Gerwig, has adapted this novel again. So as you can see, I'm showing you here 4 different adaptations to the novel into cinema, and you could just remember that you could use this way of telling the story. You see, it is the seventh film adaptation of the 1869 novel of the same name by Louisa May Alcott, always with Little Women title. And although this is an American novel, it has been adapted from filmmakers that are American, but also British, and actors that are also British. So, well, we can also comment that 2020s, we think about what kind of movies you have watched recently, and that can be used in your syllabus design to inspire your students to keep learning English in a very kind of engaged way. And then art cinema. And the last page is about Australian cinema, because we consider also this. Not only here in my PDF, you will find many, like the beginnings, from the crack to the Second World War, from the Second World War to the 60s, the 70s, and the present day Australian cinema. And well, I'm just, I'm going to mention some of them. Well, you have them there. I'm not going to read them because you have if you are being accompanied by me in the studies of this unit, you will have time to comment about these movies. But let's remark here in the video the Crocodile Dundee, that if you are from my generation on or older generations than me, you will perfectly remember that. You will also perfectly remember Babe, Moulin Rouge, Happy Feet, Australia, Lion, The Great Gatsby, and Peter Rabbit. So that's it. This is the end of the video about the cinema. I hope you have found it interesting and inspiring, and you find your own way to say something about the cinema in English language. If you like my content, please subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video or you want to share something or send me something, please comment below or send me an email. Talk to you soon. Bye.